Are live. Pro Wrestling Inside Out. We are live and we welcome you to Pro Wrestling Inside Out. Once again, we're going to talk professional wrestling. Last week, right here, if you didn't watch the video, we talked about Ricky Morton, Dusty Rhodes, Ronnie Garvin. We talked about that. I probably had the biggest views that we've ever had on our Facebook page on that conversation. So if you missed that one, go back and see that one because evidently it people they really enjoyed what we had to say. Uh, Rodney, what's going on in the world of professional wrestling?
Well, there's been quite a bit actually, but probably most pressing thing today is the passing of two wrestlers, Terry Funk first, and then Bray Wyatt. Just totally surprised with Bray Wyatt, of course. Terry, a legend indeed. I just hit hard last week. It just seemed like all the good ones are going. We were I actually got a text telling me that Terry Funk had passed away. So it's been interesting. I think that the WWE did a fantastic job in honoring both.
Yep.
Cody did tremendous. He worked so hard in Talking Sweat. I thought it was no. I don't. I mean, he really did work hard. I mean, he really did. I'm being totally serious. I think he did a great job in that. Um, and like I said, I watched the NWA show. I was listening to Billy Corgan say that this is going to be the year that they're going to break out, and this is going to be their year. And then I watched two of the episodes, and I was so disheartened by the whole thing. I had to go find me some old wrestling. The first place I went was Terry Funk versus Dusty Rhodes in a Texas Death Match, and never am I disappointed, or never was disappointed with Terry Funk.
Jack, what's going on in the world of professional wrestling as you know it today?
Well, we also lost Abe Jacobs last week. He was a mainstay in the Carolina territory for many, many years. And when he passed away last Monday, he, at that time, held the record for the oldest living professional wrestler. I'm not sure who that mantle went to now, but Abe was that for a while. Great guy from New Zealand, retired and stayed in the Carolinas for the rest of his life. Big loss for those fans there. He was still very well respected by the fans in that area.
Abe Jacobs, I loved him. I loved Abe Jacobs. I mean, I know the first time I ever saw somebody, we were watching Abe Jacobs, and he was wrestling in Atlanta, and they were doing this deal, and this guy pulled gimmick out, hit him with it, and boy, he would go down, and he would sell it, and that guy would go back in there, and he'd hit him, and he'd go down, and then finally, he's going to make his fiery comeback, and he actually goes down into the guy's pants, hits that gimmick, and hits the guy with it. Tremendous from Abe Jacobs. He was tremendous and a good guy. I remember.
That
Yeah.
was the most original thing I'd ever seen. We talked we talked about that forever. It seems like it was like in Gainesville, Georgia, somewhere like that. Gainesville. Uh, they got that, and we just never will forget that. Abe Jacobs, too, quite a wrestler.
And was very good at what he did.
Yeah. And our friend also, George Grable, is in the hospital, ICU in Georgia, not doing very well. So, if y'all could, everybody out there could keep her in your prayers. I'm sure she would appreciate that. Joyce was a wonderful woman. Still very proud of her involvement in professional wrestling, and as she should be. We've also got Cauliflower Alley going on presently. I've been seeing a lot of pictures posted, and looks like everybody's having a great time. We really, really have got to get out there sometime and enjoy the festivities.
The true wrestling business. When you look at the true wrestling business, and today what we're seeing is not the true wrestling business.
No.
It is a form of wrestling, I guess. but it's not the wrestling business. The wrestling business is unfortunately, is not with us anymore. And people will say all the time, and they'll say, "Go watch so and so." I won't throw no names out there. But they'll say, "Go
Yeah.
watch so and so. He's on the internet. Go watch it." And I'll go see him. He's always old school. He's old school. And I go watch, and I'm thinking, man, I don't know. No, I don't think old school wrestlers do that. Old school wrestlers in everything they did was meant for you to believe. And there were some guys that came along in the '80s that kind of took that away. They also would take away the believability of wrestling. So it's not wrestling today uh, that I like. Now, I do not watch. I cannot watch a whole program. I've tried. Mickey, I think it was Mickey Mayfield. Was it Mickey Mayfield up here that asked this question? Let's see. Um Kevin Penley asked this question. He said, "Hey, did any of you watch all suspended wrestling from Wembley?" Uh, I didn't watch any of it. I've not watched any. Have y'all watched any clips or anything of the show?
I watched the one clip of Saraya coming to the ring with her family. That's it.
Rodney, did you watch any parts of this?
I've seen clips. I've seen some clips here or there. I just wondered what a kangaroo kick was. I saw it, and then I said, I still want to know what it is. It was very interesting. Yeah, I did not, other than seeing clips and just seeing some reviews as they came in, or results as they came in. That's about it for but what I do think I can say without being treated or being incorrect is that absolutely nothing was done. If you're supposedly have a huge crowd and all this attention, you would thought you would have shot at least one major angle through the show, and they simply didn't, as far as I know. And I don't really call the behind the scene thing with Punk and Perry as an angle. That's that was done for the show. That's something completely and totally different, and that is an angle, by the way.
I have heard that Eric Bischoff called it indie terrific.
Indie-rific.
Yep.
Indie-rific.
Said it was very independent show. It was not a show that a big time league wrestling organization should be putting on. I have heard this, Jack, and I'm not for sure. The UK. Do you know what the ratings are there? Because I have heard 50,000 people watch that show.
I really have not looked up their ratings. I don't think it's a major deal as far as ratings go over there, though.
Because if, let's say 50,000 people are watching the show, how did they draw 80,000? I mean, wouldn't you have to draw almost 1.6 million people to draw anywhere near a 10% crowd? No, it probably wouldn't have to do that many, would you? Probably about 800,000, because you're going to get about 10% of the people who watch your television show. Not everybody's going to show up there and watch wrestling. Never have. I don't know how they could be any different today. It's kind of hard to know. Their ratings have to be better than 50,000 people.
They have to be.
They have to be. They at least have to have 800,000 people watching there, like they do in the United States. I don't know, but I talked to Bing about it. And yes, you can talk to Bing. People might think it's crazy, but you can talk to Bing. And they finally told me they did not want to speak to me anymore about that subject, and basically hung up on me, basically. So nobody wants to know. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Was those sold tickets? Do y'all think they sold all 80-something thousand tickets?
I don't know. The way they worded it was they distributed an X number amount of tickets.
Now the consultant, Honest Dave Meltzer, says that they sold 81,000 and had a gate over. Didn't give an exact amount of 10 million. So again, I'm not sure. I also saw where they had big ratings from last week of 2.3 million or something watched their show, and then I can't find it anywhere else. So apparently, a little bit of propaganda work maybe is out there to work it. I'm not sure, but for me, something doesn't add up. I don't know exactly what, but something somewhere doesn't add up. The math, if they say the math does not get up. And all I can say is it's very possible the same people who were counting votes in our 2020 election might be counting the people at those events.
I know they did good. I saw the crowd, so I realized they're doing good. But I just don't. Hard for me to believe that a company 4 years to make it could sell that many tickets. It's amazing that they're able to even get the people to come out to the 8,000 people. I mean, props to them. Props to them. Totally. Man, how do you only sell 4,000 tickets in the United States and you go over there to UK and sell 80? I just don't see how that works.
It's very interesting. Well, I'm sure it will all come out in the watch. It'll come out in the watch. What happened? Yeah, it'll come out eventually. I'm sure Mel Server right now is putting together an in-depth report of the entire situation.
See, even Jack's dog don't agree with those numbers.
Somebody dropped by, and she's losing her mind.
Well, there's nothing wrong with someone dropping
and it
by.
It could have been where Adam Cole, he got special gear for the All-In. That could have probably drew that house. This new special gear he had.
See, this is something, and we won't even throw names out here again. But there was a time in the Continental Wrestling Federation that there was a certain booker, and people felt because he or someone else told them that business was incredible in Continental. Business wasn't incredible in Continental Wrestling at any time that he was there booking. It looked like they were because they gave so many tickets away. And also, there is a deal. You buy them. You really pay for them to come into the building. So you spend $10,000. Well, you'll end up getting 1,000, 1,500 people at that time. You usually, and that's what they would do. They spend so much money to get the people in the building. The expenses were so high, you would do a $12,000 gate and lose $1,000. That's yes, you had people in the building, but it's not about the people in the building. It's about what you make profit-wise. Doesn't matter how many people. Is it possible they spent a ton of money? Let's say they made $10 million. I'm going to say that what they're saying is what they're saying is correct. They did $10 million. How much did they spend to put that show on? Because we know personally, it's going to cost you about $38,000 to put a show on in the United States of America. What about a show in that? Because the Wembley Stadium, Jack? What's the rent at the Wembley Stadium?
Well, I'm sure it's not cheap. Because that's a major venue.
I mean, we're probably talking a couple of $1 million to get out of that building by the time you're done.
Oh yeah, easily.
Probably $2 or $3 million to get out of there. Plus, what did they spend in advertising? There's no telling what they would spend. I would like to know not the gross amount. What's the profit of that show? Because we can all pack a building. I remember we were in Piedmont, Alabama, and we did a decent house there. We had people there. But what we couldn't explain to the people were, there's a bunch of people there, but we gave away almost every ticket that's in here. But everybody thought we sold it out and we made all this big money. You remember that, Jack? I mean,
I do.
I mean, Rodney, is this happening on all levels, on all wrestling organizations?
I have my suspicions that yes, but we'll let the jury stay out on that for a little bit longer. But there's a lot of indications that what we're saying is mere astroturf. It's like you were saying, papering it. That's what WCW used to call it when they go into a town and give, thousands of tickets away to try to fill up the venue. And again, I'm not saying this is what happened here, but I suspect that there might be some of that.
Because we know WCW did it. Go back and watch Halloween Havoc from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I don't know what year that was. I can't remember what year it was. But was that the when Abdullah the Butcher got shocked? Was that the year that he got shocked in the cage?
Yeah, that was the one in Chattanooga. Yeah,
I didn't go to the show. I did watch it on paper. Even though I was paid to go promote it, I did not go personally because they weren't going to pay me to be there at the show that night. I was just paid to do promotion. But we know that took place because we were a part. All of us were a part of giving that away. So we know Birmingham, Alabama was done the same way. I don't know, Atlanta was done the same way. So many places were done the same way when they were going to do TVs. And you knew when it wasn't being given away because the WWF during Hulk Hogan's reign did not give tickets away. They didn't have to. But Hulk Hogan on the card, it was going to sell out. Didn't matter. You didn't have to give tickets away. Is there anybody on the cards now that they put on the cards that by putting them on the cards, they're going to sell out instantaneously by putting them on the cards?
That would be Nick Wayne. When you put him on any card, and I know that because I drove by. I understand it was like a news report that the drive-through at McDonald's was backed up so far, blocks and blocks away, and he was actually there at the time, working the drive-through.
Oh man. Ratings for AEW still have not come up. Still 864,000, even though if you read something on the internet that said 2.3, that has not happened. And if you hear that they went from 864,000, 840,000 to 2.3 in 1 week, you know that's not true. It cannot happen.
You couldn't even add all their ratings combined for the entire week for all programming and get that high.
Well, I did hear that SmackDown did 2.6.
It did, yes.
And again, it goes to what I've been saying. If you have something on the TV program people really want to see or are interested in, and I hate to, we know why they tuned in, they're there. So they're watching, and it can grow if you have something. And of course, again, the two salutes, if you will, to both were just brilliantly done. I especially love the end of SmackDown where they had the lantern and then the shadow looked like him. I thought it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Will they bring Bray's brother into WWE and try to continue doing something in that respect?
Of course, there's a lot of speculation right now with nothing confirmed, but I have read some stuff that a lot of fans are hoping that they will. I'm not sure that his brother has the strong enough vocal character, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, to pull that off, but maybe they can do something. I thought it was great to see Eric Rowan back just on the stage. That was a one-off deal. They just invited him to come back for that. But I hadn't heard if they've talked to him about bringing him back in again. But I think if you put him and Braun Strowman together with Bray's brother, leading them, if he can pull it off, I think it would be a great homage to Bray Wyatt, and because that was a brilliant gimmick. I mean, it just really was.
The thing about Bray was, and I didn't particularly like him as the Fiend. I didn't like that particular gimmick. I loved the gimmick that he did when he was the guy with the, the white family. I thought that was
Yeah.
tremendous. I didn't like the
Yes.
Fiend. I
Yes.
didn't like the Firefly Funhouse stuff. But you can't take away, even though I might not, the fans loved him. I mean, what you don't really see it as much, but for some reason they connected with him somehow.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion, they connect because connections. Sometimes we don't know why people connect. We have no clue why Junkyard Dog connected with people. He wasn't the greatest wrestler in the world, but he connected with them.
Yeah.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan in Louisiana, he connected, and man, he was not the greatest wrestler in the world, but man, he connected with the people in some form or fashion. And Bray did as well. He had the ability to connect with fans, and it's very sad that you would pass away at 36 years old, and we wish his family condolences, and it's a horrible thing at 36. Mike Rotundo was his father, and I think Blackjack Mulligan was his grandfather, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, let's go and see what the people have to say. Kevin, could you explain the all suspended wrestling from?
Well, that would be the suspension of CM Punk and the equally talented Jack Perry after an incident which Mr. Perry and Punk got into it behind the scenes. Blah blah, same crap. Blah blah blah.
Do they think that people?
And now they're supposedly suspended. It's just.
I tend to side with Rodney that this is a work.
Yeah, that's gonna be the next person.
And I think what they're doing is they're giving Jack Perry time to go eat Pop-Tarts like me and get a little bigger.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they're going to be very concerned of 180-pound Jack Perry. It's going to be out there against Punk. Supposedly, they got in an altercation. I read about it, and I just thought all I could hear is my BS alarm going off. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Just total garbage.
And before we get too far along, before I forget, I do want to say something positive about Tony Khan.
Okay.
He told the entire roster that they don't know when Bray Wyatt's services are going to be yet. But if any of the roster wanted to go to the funeral, didn't matter if it interfered with any of their tapings, he would change things around however needed to make sure that everybody that wanted to go pay their respects could pay their respects. And I thought that was very nice of him, to recognize that need.
All right. Hasso said, good evening, everyone. Richard Hood, good evening, gentlemen. Richard Hood also, rest in peace. Terry Funk, one of my favorite wrestlers. Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Talking about Terry, I had a chance to go on with Brian Young. We talked about Terry, and I'm sorry, I get a smile on my face when I talk about Terry, because never was there a bad match. There was always something inventive. There was something new. Terry never did the same match ever. I never saw Terry did the same match ever. I remember he and Dusty, of course, they had that big feud after the arm breaking. And it went everywhere. And Atlanta was one of the places they had it. And I never will forget the night that Terry brought the timekeeping table and set it into the corner and was going to run Dusty into it. And then he ends up getting run up into that table repeatedly. The place goes nuts. And you're like, and I think, and of course we talked about it, and Brian said that Terry's motto was, I'm going to entertain the people so they will come back. How many wrestlers think that way? I mean, really, how many go in there saying, I want to entertain them to the point that they always come back? And that was what I was waiting for, the next Terry Funk match, whoever that might be. And I saw, you can go through the internet, you can go with he and Dusty, you could go with Terry Funk and Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler. those are classic matches. There's a great match. If you haven't ever seen it, it's 2 out of 3 falls for the world title from Houston, Texas. Terry Funk against Harley Race. Just brilliant match. And I really, like I said, when I was disheartened by something I saw today, the first place I went is to find a Terry Funk match.
Not only that, he had a good feud with Manny Fernandez in Florida.
Man, that was when he was in his chaps and his hat. He got behind the curtains and was fighting the curtains. He could have a match with a chair. I've seen him go at a chair. He was a one of a kind. And like I said, anytime you saw a Terry Funk match, you saw something. He always had something new, and you can believe if he's going to be in the studio. And I think this is his experience. When you saw Terry Funk on the card, you knew you were going to see something. And that's every time. I mean, think about the great interviews. Think about those great interviews where he and Dory, because they own their own company, they had their own camera, going out to the dump, going out to the, the pigsties. Some of those they couldn't show on TBS because, I'm sorry, but they're a little strong, and we couldn't tell that they had to have him redo one because, and I mentioned this on Brian's show, where he went out to the dump and he was shooting rats like Dusty Rhodes, and he was going bang, shooting rats. And TBS, no, we can't show that here, so they had to go back and redo it. And what you see in TV was still him in the dump, rat, but he's never shooting the rats. Shooting rats.
He was so good because he opened up the show one time, and the show opened up, and you saw what you saw in it is you saw a bunch of cattle. And you seen him being roped up, and you hear him right at the beginning. He's like, "Let me tell you something, Dusty Rhodes. I'm going to come to Atlanta, and I'm going to rope you like the cow you are. You egg sucking." That's all you're hearing. You're hearing Terry Funk. You hear him talking about Atlanta. You hear him, "I'm going to kick you, Dusty Rhodes." It was just a tremendous. He was just so good at what he did.
And the way he said it, it was just unbelievable how he said it. One interview I watched, that was that Texas Death Match from Atlanta, where he's talking to Gordon. He said, "I have to tell you, the people thought I was going to pass away in that one, and if I would have, it would take the mortician 6 weeks to wipe the smile off my face so that because after I beat Dusty Rhodes, it got to the point where my brother had to come into the ring and pull me off of him." And then Gordon says, "Well, if you'll just stand right there, we have video footage." And the look, and this is experience, this is talent. The look on Terry's face when he kind of turned to Gordon and said, "So we're going to go to Atlanta. We're going to go to the Omni. We're going to show what happened." And of course, it was opposite. It was Dory jumping in the match to pull Dusty off of him, and then he said, "Well, Mr. Funk, what's going on here?" "Well, well, in a Texas death match, there are no rules." And there are no rules. And then that's the one where they're jumping on Dusty's arm, and the spectators try to come in the ring, and they say, "Look at that, spectators trying to come in the ring, and they know better to jump in the ring with us." This is because we're the meanest men in Atlanta. And then at the end of that, he said, "I ran Dusty Rhodes out of Texas. I ran him out of Florida, and I can tell you here, he will never come back to Georgia either." It was just to me at that time, Terry Funk was the deal.
Yeah.
He was the deal. Egg sucking dog was everywhere. Everywhere you go, it doesn't make any difference. It was everywhere.
And think about that. We're laughing about that now, and it was funny then. But it wasn't funny because he was trying to make a caricature of himself. He wasn't telling jokes. He was very serious.
Yes.
In his presentation. The fact that we got the humor from it was great. That's what he intended. But it did not take away from him in any way. It just added more heat to it.
in that interview, he said they may like you in Sarasota, where you should be down there, so taking winter residence in with the carnival people and with the circus people. P.T. Barnum, I think you're great, but the intelligent wrestling fan doesn't.
What was good about Terry was everything
Amazing.
he did was done in that he was just crazy. And everything he did was because he was crazy.
Yep.
The stuff he does with Jerry Lawler in Memphis is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Almost turns him babyface. He turns himself almost babyface in Memphis.
You're talking about and this is his idea. No audience, just an empty arena, Mid-South Coliseum. It's just Lawler, he, and Lance Russell. It's just one of the. If you haven't seen that, it's the most brilliant thing you've ever seen, and you didn't even need the crowd. I mean, it was just that good. And at the end, yeah, that whole thing with my eye, Lance, just turned him. Bill Dundee tell the story over and over again. He just said that just pretty much turned Terry, almost turned him.
Well, because he did it so well. You believed it. He was all mean and all mad and all cussing, and Lance Russell told, don't be cussing. We're going to try to use some of this on TV, And then he goes to put his eye, and then he puts the eye out in it, and he sells it so well that he makes people feel sorry for him, even though it was him that started it. That was Terry Funk.
One of the best parts of that match was when Lawler was running behind the front row, around the ringside seats. He was running from him. He said, "What's wrong, Lawler? Why are you running from me?"
People can watch that video and see Jim Cornette taking photographs during that whole.
Just amazing. It was an amazing thing. A lot of stuff. Is if you look back, Terry Funk's involved. I mean,
well,
I can talk all night.
Wrestling, you think about Smoky Mountain Wrestling and Terry Funk and the stuff that he did with the Bob Armstrong. It was there. Tremendous stuff. No matter where Terry Funk went, he was going to entertain you.
Well, I believe if they would have got away in Atlanta and let Terry work with Brad, I think he would have got him over, because in a single match, he did. We were at the Omnidori, and Terry Funk against Bob and Brad, and Terry did this thing where he went. Brad nailed him. He went up on the top rope, laid face down on the top rope in the corner, and he's yelling to Brad, "Kick me, kick me!" And he would kick him, and he'd go way up and fall back down about 3 times. Then he straddled and walked the second rope, with the top rope, and straddled it, and then Brad hit him and knocked him out. The place exploded. That's experience. That is experience. And we're thinking, when we're going to see this match again? Once again, what was Terry's motto? Entertain them so they will come back. Entertain them, and he did. And we wanted to see that match again. Never saw. Never again. Never again. We say, just put Brad against Terry Funk. Never saw it again.
No. Let's see. Richard Hood, rest in peace, Abe Jacobs. Mickey Mayfield, rest in peace, Terry Funk, and Wyndham Rotundo. For those of you who don't know, Wyndham Rotundo was Bray Wyatt's real name. Don Hester, hello, all. Rest in peace, Bray Wyatt, from Richard Hood. I think we already seen Hasso, didn't we? We already said hello to Hasso. I thought, maybe not. Let's see here. Michael Barr, hello from Southeast Alabama. Hey, I heard it was Charlie Platt's birthday just the other day, maybe a week or so ago. Charlie Platt, one of the greats in wrestling that does not get the credit he deserves.
I saw him in an interview from Gulf Coast the other day without the mustache. I didn't know it was him.
Dennis Mitchell, Terry Funk was one of the best ever, gone not forgotten. Jack Perricker learned something from him. And don't get me started on CM Punk. CM Punk, he had momentum, but Jack, does he have that momentum anymore?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, he was supposed to be the highlight in the draw of their Saturday show, and it's not happened. They don't even garner half the ratings of their Wednesday night show. And now he's going to be gone for however long, a month or so from this suspension. So
I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't hurt.
And, well, college football, too. We know college football is going to hit him in the head. And this could be a way of Tony saying, well, we knew we'd take a hit, football, and now Punk not being here. So.
Keep Yamamoto Jr. prayers also. I heard that he was sick.
He's been bad for a while.
Jeremy Richter said, hello, fellows. Hello to you. Kevin Penley asked this question. How important do you think the Funks meant to wrestling in the NWA belt? Jack?
I think they were tremendous representatives. Let's remember that during this time period, if you weren't legitimate, you didn't get to touch that belt, not put it around your waist. That's why Harley was the champion so long. They knew that Dory, they knew that Terry, they knew that Jack Briscoe, those guys could go into any situation, and you knew that championship belt was coming back out with them. So the Funks were important to that. Dory, not as personable, I guess you'd say. He was very dry, but he was a great technician in the ring. And the polar opposite was Terry, who was just literally bouncing off the ropes in there. But both great and both worthy of being world champions at a time when they were the only real world champions.
Rodney?
Yeah, Dory Funk, I believe 4 years, basically went undefeated. We're not talking about dropping it and winning it back. No, 4 years straight as world champion. And when Harley Race beat him in Kansas City, it stunned the crowd there. Absolutely stunned the crowd. Dad said, of course, we didn't get to see Dory as champion. We were too young, but Dad said that Harley was great, Rick was great, but nothing like Dory Funk Jr. as far as the world champion and the way he carried himself and the way that he got in the ring. Terry, just like you were saying, polar opposite, but it brought excitement wherever he went, and that was the key. I think as far as Terry's career, though, his career began the day he lost the World Heavyweight Championship to me, and it really exploded. I mean, he comes to some of the great rivalries in wrestling. And Dory Funk, basically still tremendous draw. He was tremendous draw in Florida. Was the Southern champion, the Florida champion down there. And like I said, very low key. But if you watch, and I've noticed this with the Funks, Terry seems to be the instigator, but it looked like Dory was trying to play the nice guy. And every time then he would pull something dirty every time. And I think that's the way they intended it. And I think it worked perfectly.
Michael Barr, K-Fab Wrestling, is no longer with us. No, hadn't been for years. My favorite proletariat Funk had a dream of him, Dory Funk Jr., talking about Ric Flair. I don't think Dory Sr. would have been very happy with Rick.
No.
I just don't think he would. Daniel Lang, Wrestling Trivia Challenge. I'll turn this off because not all of it's there. Wrestling Trivia Challenge. The Beautiful People were a short-lived faction consisting of Pretty Boy Bobby Heenan, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Luscious Johnny Valiant, and what fourth member? The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Handsome Harley Race, Nature Boy Ric Flair, let's see, our superstar, Billy Graham. I think I know this name. I think I know this because I think I did. I put a Facebook thing out there for it. We'll let other people figure that out. Y'all think about y'all's answers, and we'll come back to it in just a moment. Hasso, it's bad that someone recommend them as being an actual wrestler. Did somebody do that? Am I missing something?
Well, back in the day, you couldn't buy tights or boots without a recommendation. You just didn't get it. Noel Ash made many a phone call to you were trained by who now, and would get clearance before he'd make you a pair of boots. If you wasn't in the business, you didn't get them.
And that was good.
Yeah, it protected the business.
Richard Hood said, "Take my hat off to you guys that can watch the whole wrestling." Now I can't watch the wrestling. I've not watched the whole wrestling show in at least 5 years.
My my way of watching it, I think, Richard, I need to talk to you about how I watch the shows. It'll make it a lot better for you.
Here's my way.
I saw a clip of Fozzy singing Judas. Is that how he says that?
Yeah. That's
Jericho.
Jericho's entrance song.
Wouldn't you think Tony Khan would ask his roster to be professional for a first-time event as that?
Well,
how does Tony know what professional is?
That's true, and to me, this is exactly how he wants them to act. I mean, you know.
Victor Nash, I think it says Wowie.
Yeah,
I guess that's a
Wowie. That was Bray Wyatt's little.
As the Fiend.
Yeah.
I did not.
I happened to have him here. My daughter bought me that for Christmas. It sits right here beside me every week.
Was there not also beautiful people of women wrestling too? I thought the beautiful people were Angelina Love and Velvet Sky.
It was when they were in TNA, and maybe so in Impact. I'm not sure.
Daniel Lang said it was 30 years ago. What he's talking about. Kevin Finley says doesn't add up. You got your calculator, Frank. Jimmy, we'll just get her off. We're already in trouble, so that'll really get us around. I want folks to know there's only certain things you can talk about on YouTube here. We already stay in trouble. That's the reason we're going to be moving soon to a radio station format and a website so that we control what's going on, because we certainly ain't in control now. Let's see. George Lambert wants to say, please keep Joyce Grable in your prayers. She's fighting for her life in Carrollton, Georgia, and I see. Yes, we wanted to pray for her. Let's see. Ajax will not wash it out. If not, it cannot be cleaned. I'm not for sure what we were talking about at the time.
Yes.
Jack said you have a good watchdog there.
Yeah.
What's up, Jimmy James from Richard Hood? Let's see, where am I at here? All right. Miles Legion. No water. AEW have sold 80,000. If they
No
did,
way.
No way. AEW have sold 80,000 tickets if that show over there 30 days. That's for Pro Wrestling Inside now. I'm not for sure. I'm not.
I know what he's saying, that there's no way that they sold that many tickets. They had to be in giveaways, a lot of them, and I agree.
Yeah, he did say no way for good amount. I do too. Something that's not adding up there. And take it from people who've promoted wrestling and promoted circus and promoted other things. We've done it so long, we kind of see something adding up here.
And I don't blame them. We know how WWE comes about their numbers. They include everybody down to the janitors that are on staff. And hey, that's the way it's always been done. If Tony wants to count them that way, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. We know the reality, though. My only problem is old Uncle Dave there saying that WWE would never be able to beat that number. Oh, That's an awful big glove to lay down in front of them, buddy.
How is Impact still in business? I haven't watched it, so I don't really know. How many people watch that? Maybe 5?
Their numbers have gone up quite a bit. I did check on that last week. Not purposefully, I was reading some articles and it popped up. But I know last year or so back when I checked, they were around 75,000, but they were up to 160,000 average viewers for the last month. So they've basically doubled their viewership, which is pretty good for them. And I would like to see it, but it's not carried on anything down here that I can get.
Mickey Mayfield said, "Give all the tickets away, and the talent shares a Diet Coke and one hot dog."
Well, when you've got sponsors, you can afford to give tickets away.
That's right.
People get paid.
Michael Barr said, "Nick who?" Don Hester, AWA must have a deal. Buy a ticket, get a free food and drink all show long. Unbelievable that they sold out Wimbledon. It is. It really is.
And that was AEW and not AWA.
Oh, I'm sorry. AEW, sorry. Kevin Penley, Jungle Jack was supposed to be at the Huntsville, Alabama Comic-Con. He wasn't there, but was a thrill to meet Mick Foley. So what, did Mick Foley take his place?
Yes.
Well, I'd rather see Mick Foley anyway.
I would too.
Even though Mick Foley kind of looks like Santa Claus now. So I'm not for sure. I may think you're seeing Santa.
Well, he actually does play Santa Claus during the holiday season. So.
There you go. I would like to see AEW Tony Khan book a match between Rodney versus Jack. I would put my money on Rodney. That would draw maybe Jack Perry could get Jim Herd as his partner. Rodney could beat both Herd and Jack Perry in a handicap match. Dennis Mitchell will see you in a handicap match with Jack Perry.
I'll be your Dory Funk, buddy.
Michael Barr, did the technology of today take away from yesterday's kayfabe style of wrestling? No, that was done way before even the internet came along. Being the tech back then was not there. I don't think so. Do you, Rodney?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you're talking about the possibility of people telling the finishes and stuff beforehand, maybe. But as far as technology, no, I don't. I think in fact, it looks like in some cases, being the ratings are so awful, that the social media is where people are watching. So, and that could be part of it.
Well,
even though, go ahead.
Let's remember that Dave started writing his kayfabe stuff in the mid '80s. Mm-hmm. So it was the old school wrestlers basically that was, starting to tell stuff that was happening behind the scenes. So we can't just blame today's generation for ignoring kayfabe when a majority of our peers are the ones who opened that door.
Yeah, they went out of their way to do it. I mean, we if we really want to lay it out, Abdullah running around with Mark Lewin and the Mephisto. I mean it's absolutely unforgivable. All right, Mephisto's just lucky. Frankie Kane just lucky to be ever booked again. It shouldn't have been, really. But he came back. A year later, he was back. And he shouldn't have been. Abdullah was back. But Abdullah was never pushed in a main event way ever again, though. That was one of the things. And then, all the wrestlers. Traveling, Duggan and Steve Williams in bars in New Orleans when they just got through finished working with each other. So it's been there for a long time. You're exactly right.
And they that era, people will blame wrestling what they're watching today. The reason, but it started in the late '80s. Mm-hmm. Around 1987, something happened in the wrestling business that really turned the wrestling business to what it was. By 1990, it was pretty well gone.
I think it started the very moment Turner bought WCW. And powers that be, Sting, the Steiners, none of those people care about the wrestling business. They never cared about the wrestling business, and they could probably go around and tell you they do, but all they're doing is still leeching off from it after all these years. But as far as actually loving the business, no, they never did. Never did. As far as I was concerned, they never did. Lex Luger's another one. The wrestlers took over, basically. This is what happens when the wrestlers take over.
Richard Hood, guys, do all promoters get? Well, they used to give 30% of the gate to the wrestlers. At least they were supposed to. Some did. Some gave 25%. It was just
Some gave 20.
Promoter it was. And
one with
I don't even know.
JJ.
Does that even exist anymore? Because remember, we got knocked really bad saying that percentage of the wrestlers should get that wrestlers should get 25 to 30% of the gate. And if you can't draw any more of that, we were knocked saying, well, that ain't how the wrestling business works anymore.
I mentioned this formula to a lot of promoters, and they absolutely don't get it. They don't understand. But of course, you're talking to, promoters that have never really had big houses too. So, they're used to, let me make my money back first, and then whatever's left, I'll pay out of that, which is not the way we did it. You got whatever that 30% was, that's what you doled out back then. And it was, unless it was just a bad town, you made pretty decent money.
And even back in the territory days, Georgia Championship Wrestling had a $65 in the 70s, had a $65 guarantee, or you got a percentage of the gate. Most all the time, they made over that, except for there was a little time in Georgia that didn't draw. But, there was a time in 1980s that didn't draw. Maybe the whole year. I'm not sure. But the whole 1980s was pretty bad. And then the Freebirds came there, and it did better. Business came up, and then Roddy Piper got there. Business came up a little bit. Not tremendously, but it was better than it was when Iron Mike Sharp was there on the main events. And I guess Bruiser Bob Sweet. That did not draw. Let's see. Bray's gimmick cannot be copied, none whatsoever. He was one of a kind. That's like trying to get somebody to probably do the Undertaker.
Yeah, you can, because of these folks that I mentioned earlier, they're not copying his gimmick. They were a part of that gimmick. And that's the way you could go forward with that and still make it a viable characterization there.
Favorite Terry Funk moments? Any promo on Jerry Lawler? Also a terrific match he had against Dory in Japan. And what does it say? Does it say in 83?
81.
81? Because I can't see it on there. Boxing guy Brian is with us. Hey, Nuts. I made it a bit late. How are y'all? And thanks again, Rodney, for coming on Transatlantic History Ramblings Tribute to Terry Funk.
Yeah, if you get a chance, look it up. It's Transatlantic History. Throw that up again one more time, Brent. We were there with Terry Sullivan. Tremendous amount of stories with Brian. Had some insight with Terry and what he was going through at the end. But yeah, Transatlantic History Ramblings, our tribute to Terry Funk. Check it out. It's a lot of great information in there.
You don't have to be a great wrestler to connect with the fans. Sometimes the great wrestlers end up
being trainers.
But here's the thing, too. At the same time, the people that we talk about, and we talk about Jim Duggan, that helped build the company was also the same guy that helped kill the company. Because after a while, people start seeing through that they're bad wrestlers.
Yeah.
And after a while, because they have to have a Ted DiBiase. Jim Duggan had to have a Ted DiBiase, a Midnight Express. So put him with somebody that wasn't that great. Now you can see Jim Duggan. You can see through it. Because when he went against Ted DiBiase make him really lay it in there. He would make him lay it in there. And he had better matches with Ted DiBiase because Ted could have a match with a broom and it was going to be good. But put Jim Duggan with somebody that's not a Karchenko or someone similar to that.
What about Rob Ricksteiner?
Rob Ricksteiner, yes. Put him with him.
Rob Ricksteiner, yeah. And
you
Thor the Terrible.
seeing through Jim Duggan.
Edgar Boo Thomas.
The heel he was going to get. And because we were there, we kind of started seeing the people say, maybe. When he left, Jim Duggan needed to leave. He business was not good with Jim Duggan there. He had been there so long too. Let's say we already did that, didn't we? Miro was in that altercation somehow as well. Is he talking about the CM Punk?
Yeah, I guess.
I did not see his name, but I
no, that's the first time
I just blurred over it because I said, well, this is another one of their little behind the scenes angles they're doing because that's what really draws them.
Well, I think Tony has in his mind that it's the backstage stuff that's getting the most attention, so that's what they're going to go with going forward and not worry about doing angles in the ring.
Don Astor, I'm with you, Brett. The leader of the Wyatt family was the best character. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, the first time I saw that, I loved every moment of it.
And it was still getting over. Vince just has this thing about always having to update gimmicks.
You're connected by the frequency of their voice. I was partial to the All Japan Pro Wrestling Tournament tag match with the Funks versus Sheik and Abby. Oh, hey, I got to see that. That was good.
Yeah, Terry Sullivan mentioned that they brought that same match to Detroit. So it got over so well. There's a huge story, and I'm not gonna try to tell everything we said in that interview. But Brian had a tremendous story about Terry and Dory in Japan. That simply I didn't know. I actually didn't know, and it's worth a listen, really.
Terry knew how to naturally get the fans' attention. He was like that. Yes, he really did. Man, he was. I don't think I ever seen Terry and said, "Oh man, that was horrible." Never watched the Terry Funk match. Yeah. Never watched an Ole Anderson match except for Lars Anderson. Match we had Lars Anderson. I don't know that I can blame Ole for that.
No,
Lars just sucked really bad.
No, I was there for some of those matches, and it was never Ole. Never.
Lars just was horrible. I don't know why Ole just didn't beat him all the time. I just don't get it. I loved Terry Funk as the NWA World Champion. He was a good champion. He did lose the belt in Japan. He did lose that, and he didn't know where it was at. Let's. Don Esther said Brett sounded a combo Terry Funk and Ernie Ladd. Yeah, I noticed a little Ernie Ladd was coming out. I liked old Ernie Ladd too, and Ernie Ladd I love. And Ernie was such a nice guy. He was just a tremendous man. I'll never forget that time somebody was cussing him like a dog. Boy, we was in Lorange, Louisiana, and then somebody was just cussing over Ernie. Yeah. All he did was put his hands on that guy's shoulder and said, "God bless you, my son." That's all he said to him.
Destroyed him. I mean, with one thing, everybody just burst in.
Well, okay. I thought it was unintentionally funny when he won the world title and just for a moment tried to cut a baby promo, and Sully was able to remind him who he beat for it.
That was a tremendous interview because in that interview, Gordon reminded Terry he was going to have a rematch in the next town. I mean, in the next 3 days. He said, "That soon? What are you talking about? That soon?" It was good. It was really good.
Guys, what's the name of the Western TV show? Was it the Young Guns?
No, it was Wild Side.
Was Wild Side? I watched that. It didn't last long.
And if anybody's friends with Bob Cook, he posted the YouTube link for the entire season. They only had one season, but the entire season of Wild Side last night. So even if you don't know Bob and can't go click that link there, it's available on YouTube.
Bill Cole, my Lance. It was.
I need help. Somebody give me help, Lance. Lance is dirty.
And then Lance was great too. I'm gonna get you some help.
Where is the son of a? Where is it now, Terry? We're gonna get you some help now. We just don't be
cussing. Miles Legion, don't forget Terry Funk put a plastic bag over Flair's head on TBS. Yes, they had to cut that out. They did not allow that to be put on there after the fact. I don't think it ever played again after the first because it was live, wasn't it?
Mhm.
And so I don't think they lived. And called Flair a banana nose.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yes. Oh, Terry Funk. Great stuff. While he was there and they were making him to be the baby face commentator, I thought, man, this is not Terry Funk. This is not the way I want to see Terry Funk. Was it Wild Side? I remember he did a drop kick during one of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
He was good he was in a movie, I'm thinking it was called Roadhouse.
Yes.
It was in Roadhouse. And he also was the first movie we ever saw. He was in a movie with Sylvester Stallone. I believe it was called Over the Top.
Yes.
Terry was huge in this movie.
Yeah, it was Paradise Alley he was in. And
Yes,
that was the one where he gained all that weight. We watched the whole movie. Was Terry in the movie? Yes, Terry in the movie. We never, because he didn't look nothing.
Well, he had shaved the sides of his head and had just a little hair on top, and he did look very, very different.
No, and Dad said one time he saw him, had 50 pounds. The next time he was back looking the way he was. It was amazing.
And Sylvester Stallone has said many times that Terry Funk is the very reason why he grew to respect professional wrestling so much.
Terry Funk could work a crowd. Yes, he could.
The thing in Florida where he comes in on Dusty after he's had a match, trying to beat Dusty up, and Dusty turns the tables on him, and he turns tail and runs through the crowd with Dusty behind him. It's just awesome. That crowd's falling right out the back door. It was great. I guess it was Orlando.
He was one of the best at it. Richard Hood and Terry Funk was. Jimmy James, my Lord.
Where is he? Where is he, Lance? Where is he?
And the reason he did that because he was trying to look around. Going, he ain't coming back for me, is he, Lance? He ain't coming back for me. My. It was man. And people didn't. We're laughing about it now, but it wasn't a joke. It wasn't took as a joke. The whole match was done seriously. Jerry Lawler is a baby banger. Promos in the midnight 2000s, just epic. Terry Funk was good. He just had the ability. Terry was top notch from Hasso. Terry Funk could wrestle and do the hardcore style. He might have been hardcore before hardcore was fashion.
I think he was the innovator, I feel. Honestly.
What a day in Centerville. What a day in Centerville. Let's see. So do we know if Punk and Perry are suspended? So many conflicting reports. Yeah, in a work, I believe they are. But what do you get suspended from? Because they went right back to only doing TVs?
I think so.
All right, we won't. I'm gonna tell you, Jimmy James always puts some stuff. No wonder he has so many different names. Because I guarantee you, he gets thrown off of here a lot. I'm not going to say what you say on here, so it's not going to be.
Jimmy, some of us agree with you there.
We agree. We already got demonetized. We don't get through completely off. Do you think Terry Funk is at the pearly gates looking for? Oh my gosh!
That was great. That was great. And then after he had tore Cornette's pants off, and he come out there after the match, and they were holding him down, he said, "You're a sissy, Lance. Lance, you're a
sissy." Greetings from Centerville, Iowa. What's with the conflicting Dirt Sheet reports about Punk and Perry's suspension?
Yeah, that's right. We agree. I agree with you.
Yeah, he's thinking it's work. We think it is too.
The Funks were tremendous draw in Japan.
There is no way that anybody would fear Jack Perry.
All right. Tony Richards says the person that was in that trio was Dusty Rhodes. Rodney, you agree, Dusty Rhodes?
I'm going with beautiful people. I'm going to say no.
Jack, Dusty Rhodes?
I'm thinking superstar.
All right.
That's where I'm going with superstar.
Most wrestlers, bookers, and referees had to get licenses in their state to wrestle as well, in certain states.
Yeah.
I think Alabama did have one, and then they didn't have one.
They had one until the late 70s, and then it went out. And then they brought it back about 13 or 14 years ago. And we went through a very hard time with them for years, but the new director is absolutely one of the easiest guys to deal with that I've ever seen in my life.
Rick Brooks, hello, guys, and everyone. Hasso said, Daddy said be professional. That does kind of remind you of a George Goulas, doesn't it?
George has more talent.
This is true. It's true. As a pre-team, I used to have a crush on both Joyce Grable and Judy Martin. Prayers are with Joyce. Yes.
Let me tell you that the match where they wrestled against Jacques Rougeau, what was the other one? Who wrestled with Jacques Rougeau? And Steve-O. Those matches are classics. If you get a chance to see them, the one in Columbus was better. The one in Atlanta was decent, and it worked. It absolutely worked.
Yeah.
And that was another thing they never returned, and they should have. They should have.
Jeremy Richter says, watching Fox News this morning, they did a segment on Tyrus retiring. He was unwatchable in the ring, but a very awesome person. And I seen the NWA World Champion. Great choice for this guy. I don't know if he can wrestle, but he certainly looks good.
He's pretty good. I don't know how good that match was, considering who he's in there with, because I agree. I like Tyrus as on a personal level, and somewhat agree with him politically, but in the ring, man.
Yeah, it was pretty. And I have to admit, he got NWA a lot of publicity on Fox News.
He did. I thought it was a good choice to put him as the champion for that purpose, because this is promotion. You need to get the word out there. I mean, free advertisement is free advertisement.
Well, and leading up to the 75th anniversary show, they did a lot of promotion for them for that show coming up, and it looked like he's clean. That maybe Corgan's going to clean house, because I think they switched every single belt they had.
Pretty much.
Miles Legion said in the UK, Tony Khan gets very positive press because of his dad's money.
I can see that.
Tony Richard Meltzer had plenty of collaborators. Thank y'all. In the mid-'80s, yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not for sure. Bill Watts didn't even call the guy and tell him what's going on, so he gets some good publicity in the thing. Censor. Oh, the shame of it. I get it, but it doesn't change where we're come to. Dusty, we need you. There you go, Jimmy. That's the way.
There you go, buddy.
Do it in cold. I'm telling you, the censorship is horrible these days and times, and
that's why I'm saving my Terry Funk story for the very end. That way, I can get it across before they delete us.
Is Ted DiBiase's legal troubles in Mississippi over?
No,
I didn't think they were.
Still ongoing investigations.
Miles, years in the early days of AOL and other internet bulletin web pages, there was a lot of wrestling information breaking old school kayfabe. By that time, though, because what year did AOL come out? And somewhere in the maybe 1990.
Yeah, 1990 or so.
I think so. Yeah.
By then, a lot of things happened. I mean, didn't Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik get caught, and it was all over the news? That they got caught in the Canadian border together. Didn't that happen like way before then sometime?
Well, I don't know where they were. They were somewhere up north, but they got pulled over for a traffic violation, and they were both partaking of the devil's lettuce and got arrested. Oops.
Promoters lost some of the spot shows, and the boys did better, but promoters made their money on the regular weekly towns. And some occasions, yes. Let's see. Jungle Jack still has the prettiest girlfriend on the AEW roster. Who's the girlfriend? Who's the girlfriend? Ben, George. Who's the girlfriend? So I can look at a picture. A lot of promoters back in the day didn't live and die on each date. They looked at the season, summer, and the month. They knew it was going to be a roller coaster, and they understood that. Jeremy Richter, I think when Harley Race did the secrets behind pro wrestling gimmick, many felt it was okay to expose the business, way more so than Eddie Mansfield, who didn't have any credibility. Well, but the problem is poor old Eddie, you could tell he was just doing it because he was mad.
Yeah.
He even come over as he was mad. But by that time, that Harley Race did that.
And in his defense, Eddie's on my friends list, and he's still mad. So.
Bad wrestlers. I'll leave Ox Baker out of this.
True.
Boy, Ox was, man, he had a look. Man, he was not the greatest wrestler in the world.
Yeah, we saw him.
Really nice guy.
We saw him in the latter years, though, Brent. Yeah. We have to admit, we saw him in latter years.
Tony Richards' story was a great transitional champion from the 60s and into the 70s. Kiniski was more methodical than Dory. Dory led us into the Briscoe race, great technical matches of the 70s. Yeah, Jack Briscoe, there's not many people could have beat Jack Briscoe. I don't even think George Funk Jr. could have beat Jack Briscoe. I think Jack was just a legitimate. That's the reason he was the champion. He was legitimate.
And Lou Thesz thought he was the most legitimate champion other than himself that had ever held that belt.
It would be neat to see and read an encyclopedia of all the old school wrestlers, bookers, referees, and trainers. The book would be this big. I'm guessing we could also bad bookers. We've seen a few of those in our time. That thought they were good though. Don Hester, guys, other than the city of Atlanta, what was the second best town that was on GCW's weekly rotation? I would probably put Columbus, Georgia. Augusta drew really good when they were at the Bell Auditorium. It's when they moved to the Richmond County Civic Center. Business just never was the same. Didn't the same thing happen in Albany too? Once they lost that,
I believe so.
They I think they were at a skating ring or something, and then they moved over to the Albany Civic Center, and it never did draw. The biggest house I think that they'd ever seen in years later was the New York Assassins with Jimmy Hart against Thunderbolt Patterson and Ole Anderson sold that place out.
Yeah. And
that was, I think, Boris Zukov, however you say his name.
Mm-hmm.
And who was the other guy?
Generic bum number 2.
You know what? You would know who he was.
Because it didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter. Because Jimmy
Hart.
It
didn't matter. It was Jimmy Hart.
And then Jimmy Hart asked for more money, saying that he said, just give me, I think he wanted $1,000 a week at that. And Ole would not give it to him. And you remember who came out later after him? J.R. Hogg. You remember this guy that managed? He was horrible. I think, wasn't he not from Stampede Wrestling? Ain't that where that guy came from?
He had a hat, Brent. He had a hat.
Was he supposed to be Boss Hogg?
I'm not sure. Jimmy Hart, he was not.
Hey, and I'm going to tell you, right then I knew Ole Anderson had lost it. When he got rid of Jimmy Hart, brought him. NWA World Title matches didn't get real showy until the Dusty, Tommy Rich, Ric Flair. Yes,
True.
I agree with
It's absolutely true.
Especially Flair. Funk as Frankie the Thumper.
Yep, Frankie the
Fair enough.
Thumper. That is
Yeah.
right. That is right. And I didn't recognize him. We went and seen the movie, knowing that Terry was in it. And I come out of the theater and I thought Terry Funk was supposed to be. He was Frankie the. I said, no, that wasn't Terry. Yes.
I am, as a fan here on Pro Wrestling Insider, I appreciate the followers, Jack, Brent, Rodney, so many great thoughts and memories of yesteryear. And not many people actually talk about it anymore. Talk about the territory. Very rarely hear anybody talk about the territory. Maybe Cornette, but I don't think he does he? Doesn't he talk more about what's going on today?
Well, I'm sorry. You'll have to. You'll have to find somebody that actually listens to him, right? There's nobody here that does.
Jackie Rodney, you are correct, but by referee's decision, still wrestling challenge champion, gentleman Jack Lord.
And the difference between him, you see, Billy Graham had big arms and abs. Dusty had small arm and ab.
Kegger. We call that a kegger.
He built.
Not a six pack.
He instead of having multiple abs, he built the one huge ab.
All right, so being we're saying this person is called Anna
J.
And see, I was thinking Dylan Mulvaney.
Woman, Jack.
She is. She's a beautiful woman.
All right.
Not as beautiful as my fiance, but she's close.
All right, so I'm just
See, my guess was wrong on that.
He says, am I still on all y'all's friends list? I'm not mad, just be like, yeah, I think you're on my friends list. Very rarely do I get on my Facebook page, though. Very rarely do you see me on there. Generic bum number 2 is what Michael Barr. Yeah, I don't remember who he was. People would know who he was if we said the name.
Well, if we only knew the name. It could be that he was always generic number 2.
All right, we're not going to talk about the censor pass. Richard says, Brent, I remember JR. He managed the Irwins and Kareem. Yes, that's who the guy was. JR Hall, greatest manager of all time. He was going to get a hat and everything. This tremendous. You know what? He probably wouldn't have been so bad.
He was following Jimmy Hart. Yeah, you can't follow Jimmy. No,
you just can't. But Richard, you're wrong. You're wrong. You should never call that man Ray Candy, though. Don't ever call him Ray.
No.
Still remember that. You know, out of everything they did, I remember that. Cornette does a good bit about the territories. Only does today's product because he basically
has to.
Okay, I got you. I don't ever listen to this. I did there for a while because I had time. I just don't have time. Yes, Richard, he did. He was called Arwen R. Seister. I think he's talking about Mike Rotundo, right? Did you ever identify the challenger from the 70s? Was it Lynn Denton? If it was from like 1978, Lyndon was in Atlanta as the challenger, but for a while, Hartford Love did it for a while. He was there. He did it for a while. They could have been a bunch of challengers. I think they learned all that from Nick Jules.
And honestly, it looked like from where we were doing our review of Georgia Championship Wrestling from the 70s, there was a challenger then. And
that was Bobby Shane. Bobby Shane was the challenger in 1970. But if it was in the 70s, Lynn Denton did wrestle in Atlanta for a while. Lynn Denton, the Dirty White Boys, and Jerry Stubbs. Lynn Denton, tremendous wrestler. He was so good. Don't ever get the recognition he deserved. And neither does Tony Anthony. Both great. Do you guys remember Peach State Podcast? Yes. Jerry Oates.
I think Dad was on that show a couple of times.
He was.
Lou Graham was the collector, right? Possibly later on in years, maybe. Not for sure. Jimmy James, you boys are killing me. There you go again. See, there's Jimmy. I'm telling you, we're gonna have to. Jack, could you send him a list of things that he can't say Would never be able to. When we do when we do this radio station, basically, it's going to be a radio station, and we're going to be able to allow people to be able to call in, and you'll be able to speak. You'll be able to talk. Remember, Jimmy James can't come on. Remember, he can't come on. You'll get us in trouble even then, because we are going to hopefully have sponsors on this program. So we don't want our sponsors to decide they don't want us there no more. What is it? Oh no, Jimmy James, delete it, brother. It's just the world we live in. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we that everybody, this is the problem we've had. Do you guys remember the Urban Wrestling Association? No, I don't think I remember.
I do.
I don't remember that.
Where were they out of, Richard?
Was it not Chicago? And it was a big city. I think that lasted about a year.
California.
Oh, okay.
It's in California. But folks, coming up in probably somewhere around October, maybe the first last of September, we will be moving to a format that will be actually it will be a 24-hour radio station. We'll play music, but at the same time we'll talk wrestling, and we will also have call-in shows. We'll have the ability to do that, which we don't have now because nobody really can get on here. We found that nobody can actually ever get on here that says they want to come on. They just can't. I don't know what the problem is. And we're hoping at that point you're using your phone. And we're hoping all you have to do is go, okay, yeah, this is how I'm going to get on here. But that will happen. That will happen probably the 1st of October. And we'll let everybody know the website next week. We will have a website for it. Let everybody know that next week. Jack, anything we need to talk about before we leave?
Let me tell my Terry Funk story real quick. It's not a long story. Back mid 2000s, probably, I don't know, 05, 06. It was not too awful long before I retired, but I was on a show, Boutwell Auditorium. Terry Funk was on the show. I had met Terry before, not what we'd call buddies. I'd met him, talked to him a little bit, but we, not the hanging out type deal. But he came in that night. He remembered me, and it was still early. Everybody was still getting there early, and I had brought my girlfriend with me and brought her into the back, and I was waiting to find somebody who could tell me where I could seat her out in the crowd, So she's sitting there, in that foyer that we all come in at the back. And Terry walks over and he stops and he sticks his hand out to me and he shakes my hand and he looked down at her and he said, "Is that your girlfriend?" And I said, "Yeah." And he looked at her and he said, "Well, hell, if I knew that you had standards that low, I'd have approached you first."
Michael, you never know. You never know when somebody might cut you off or demonetize you for things that you don't even know why. That's the question. Everybody owns things now, I've noticed. Everybody owns something. Even if you owned a program and you took a picture of it with your phone, you now will own that photograph for some reason.
And just so y'all know, if anybody wants to do one of those side-by-side TikToks with our show, go ahead and do it. Even if you're calling us idiots, there's no such thing as bad publicity in our industry.
That's true. And we don't care. It just as a matter of fact, we don't. Rodney, Jack, anything else we need to talk about before we leave?
I think we pretty well covered it.
Well, there we go. All right. Thank you so much. We certainly do appreciate it. We'll see each and every one of you next week. And Michael Barr said he owes nothing. Well, I don't know. Jack's going to send you a little bit of, he'll send you invoice. So all right. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now.